Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we are going to be doing the Week 5 running back start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2020. We are going to be discussing every single matchup from Thursday all the way through Monday night and talking about whether I like the running backs in the matchup or I'd rather just have them sit on the bench and ride the pine for this week number 5 of the 2020 fantasy football season. So throughout this video, if you end up having a good time, you're like, you know what, this is great, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys dominate your 2020 fantasy football season. Real quick though, before I actually get into the week 5 running back start or sit decisions, I'd like to give you guys a word from my friends and my sponsor over at OverlayDFS.com. OverlayDFS.com is the best place to play daily fantasy sports on the whole World Wide Web. Now, how does it work, you might ask? In the Matchup Shop, their new game that they debuted for the 2020 NFL season, it is simple. You are picking players head to head based upon who is going to score more fantasy football points, plus or minus the spread. Now, in the instance of the Thursday games, 2 of them have the spread. Tom Brady, minus 9.5 versus Nick Foles, and then Nick Foles gets plus 9.5, and then Anthony Miller gets plus 0 versus Jimmy Graham plus 0. So pretty much all it is, who scores more fantasy points, plus or minus the spread. I make videos every single week on this, so make sure you guys check that out. If you want to win some money, make sure you guys use that knowledge that you put every single week to win your fantasy lineups. Why not win some young moolah baby in these games? Check it out, OverlayDFS.com. And we are back. Make sure you guys check out OverlayDFS.com. Link down below in the description. Let's get right into it. Week 5 running back start or sit decisions. We begin here with the Buccaneers at the Chicago Bears. Now, in this game, this is the Thursday night matchup. It's Big Dick Nicholas Foles versus Tom Brady, a rematch from the Super Bowl a couple of years ago where the Eagles dethroned the New England Patriots. Now, obviously, both guys on 2 completely different teams, but with that said, the rivalry is still there, and I'm very interested to see how this one plays out, especially since the Bucs looked really good last week compared to how they've kind of looked this season, whereas the Bears looked very good to start the season, or at least last week, or before last week, week number 3, when Big Dick Nick came into the game against the Atlanta Falcons. They just did not look like that team. Now, Leonard Fournette is likely out in this affair up against the Chicago Bears. It is a short week, obviously, and Leonard Fournette barely practiced last week, so I think that we're going to be seeing him out again on Thursday. If he ends up playing, though, Ronald Jones's value is completely derailed. Ronald Jones is really only good if Leonard Fournette is out, because then Bruce Arians can't do some mental gymnastics of telling us Ronald Jones is the guy, then giving Leonard Fournette the ball, or telling us Leonard Fournette's the guy, then giving us Ronald Jones the ball. There's no mental gymnastics to be had if one of the guys is out, so I like Ronald Jones this week up against that Bucs defense. David Montgomery has not been good at all this season, really, if I'm being completely honest with you. He just has not lived up to my expectations, but with that said, he's still like a top 20 to 25 running back on a weekly basis, and that just makes him a start-worthy running back in fantasy football with potential to be a top 12 RB if given the opportunity in the game, but with potentially scoring some touchdowns in this one up against Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Next game here, we begin the Sunday slate with the Bills at Les Titans. The Tennessee Titans, I have no idea if this game is going to be played, if I'm being completely honest with you, due to the immense amount of corona that the Tennessee Titans have. I don't know how the NFL is feeling on this right now. I'm going to go ahead and assume it plays, but I just want you guys to understand that this game may get delayed as well due to the Tennessee Titans just having 7 zillion players on the fucking team with the big Rona. So in this game, if it happens, Devin Singletary would be a start if Zach Moss ends up missing. Now, if Zach Moss ends up playing, he completely fucks up the train. It seems like Devin Singletary will be very good if given a lot of opportunity, but when Zach Moss is on the field, he's just frankly not given that opportunity since they split the carries. So Devin Singletary is good to go in my opinion if Moss is out, but if Moss is in, I would definitely put Devin Singletary on the bench. And Derrick Henry, obviously a week in, week out starter. Now the Derrick Henry train has kind of not been all that hot to begin the season, but Derrick Henry normally takes a little bit of time to get that oomph into the season. Once it starts getting a little bit colder, Derrick Henry starts getting a little bit stronger, and he starts running motherfuckers over. So I'm not too mad at Derrick Henry's begin to the season. I think he's going to have a solid game here up against the Buffalo Bills, even though the Bills do have a pretty solid run defense. Next game here, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans, as of yesterday, fired their head coach slash GM slash head dumbass of the organization, Bill O'Brien, B.O.B. So now, it's going to look better for the Texans, I would assume, because now they're not going to be running David Johnson, hey, diddle diddle, straight up the fucking middle every single play. They're going to be able to, hey, maybe run it out, maybe give him a pitch, maybe do something where he doesn't just run straight into the O-lineman's ass like his name was Mark Sanchez. So, with that said, I like David Johnson in this game. This Jacksonville Jaguars defense got gashed by Joseph Mixon last week, and I think that David Johnson will be able to do the same thing here this week up against that Jaguars defense. James Robinson had a down game last week up against the Cincinnati Bengals, but with that said, I'm not really all too worried. One bad game does not define a player, and I think he will continue to put up potentially top 12 numbers as the weeks go on, especially up against a Texans defense that got carved last week by Dalvin Cook. Next one here for the sits, Jesus Christ Thompson apparently is his name. I was doing my Christianity homework for my college class earlier, so I just typed in Christ Thomas because I was talking about Jesus earlier. His name is Chris Thomas. Chris Thompson has not lived up to the expectations that he was kind of given going into the season. James Robinson was so unknown that Chris Thompson just kind of seemed like he was going to be the pass-catching back there. Turns out James Robinson very capable of catching the ball and is pretty much just a workhorse on this team. Duke Johnson, unless David Johnson was to end up getting hurt, Duke Johnson is pretty much irrelevant in this Texans offense, but maybe now he will be relevant due to the fact that Bill O'Brien is gone. Next game here, we got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens. Last week, the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow gets his first ever win in the NFL, and they get their first win of the season, going up against the Baltimore Ravens, who last week mollywopped the Washington football team. Joe Mixon last week laid a pipe for that Jacksonville Jaguars ass like he was a plumber, so I think Joe Mixon's going to have a good game again. Now, it's not because of the matchup. The matchup is difficult up against the Baltimore Ravens, but I believe that now the workload is there for Joe Mixon. Zach Taylor saw it with his own eyes. You hand the ball to Joe Mixon, you get Joe Mixon open in space, you dump him off the ball, the good things are going to fucking happen. And I hope that Zach Taylor has fucking photographic memory like Sean McVay, and he remembers what happened. Never forget, Joe Mixon balled the fuck out last week, and he should be given more opportunity this week again up against the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm going to go ahead and start him. I'm not selling high on him. I believe he will be able to keep up the trade. Now, this week against the Ravens is a tough matchup. I understand, but I still think he's worthy of a start. I'm sitting down Giovanni Bernard because unless Joe Mixon is hurt, Giovanni Bernard is pretty much irrelevant in this offense. He was previously in other weeks getting dump-offs, but last week it was all Joe Mixon on the dump-off train. For the Ravens, this is just a absolute shit show. It seems like you're just playing Russian roulette when you put one of these guys in your lineup, because last week Mark Ingram was the one who did good. He didn't even do all that good. Other weeks it'll be J.K. Dobbins. Other weeks it'll be Gus Edwards, and it's like rolling the fucking or spinning the revolver when you're playing Russian roulette, and instead of there being one bullet in there, there's 5 bullets in there, and only one is missing, and you're probably just going to end up shooting yourself. So with that said, that's kind of the analogy for that Ravens backfield. The only running back you're going to want to be starting is Lamar Jackson. Next game here, we got the Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons this week just looked awful. I don't understand how Dan Quinn still has a job. That offense does look kind of good. The defense was playing pretty solid up against the Packers, but it was just nothing. The offense just could not keep up with that Packers offense. The offense was slinging the ball 7,000 times to Robert fucking Tonyan, and they just rolled the Atlanta Falcons like a goddamn blunt. So in this game, going the Panthers versus the Falcons, I do like Todd Gurley. Did get a solid amount of use up against the Packers last week. He's a safe kind of bet on a weekly basis. Not a guy that I expect to ever really be inside of the top 10 or top 12 at the running back position, but a guy I don't expect to bed me over and fuck me in the ass without any use of lube on a weekly basis. Fat Mike Davis has been balling out of control every single week since Christian McCaffrey got hurt. The team is now 2-2 after falling 0-2 with Christian McCaffrey. So makes you think, is Mike Davis better than Christian McCaffrey? The answer is no. Christian McCaffrey is far better than Mike Davis, but Mike Davis fills in well on this offense, gets a whole lot of targets, and up against the Atlanta Falcons, we could definitely see a big game out of Mike Davis. Both the Falcons and the Panthers do have backup running backs of name, Reggie Bonifone for the Panthers and Brian Hill of the Falcons, but I feel like neither of those guys will be super involved unless the other back in front of them was to go down. If you guys have ended up enjoying this video thus far, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, like I said at the beginning of the video, I put out content every single goddamn day. I go to war for you guys to make sure that you guys can dominate your fantasy football league, so please make sure to hit that subscribe button. The next game here, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs absolutely bumfucked the New England Patriots on Monday night. It was kind of sad because the Patriots really stood no chance with garbage-ass Brian Hoyer, but nevertheless, the Chiefs looked stumble-ish upon the beginning of the game, or sluggish, I should say, at the beginning of the game. They just didn't look all that good, but in the second half, Pat Mahomes put it into the fucking fifth gear and rolled all over that Patriots defense. Here they go up against the Raiders, and I think this is a solid matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire hasn't been excelente the last couple of weeks, as they would say in Espanol, but I do think he has a good game here up against the Raiders. For Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, man, he's had some poor weeks, some piss poor performances a couple of weeks in a row, but I would not get pissed off about Josh Jacobs because how can you sell out and sit a player with as much talent as Josh Jacobs has? Josh Jacobs has more talent in his left testicle than Jalen Richard or Darrell Williams have in their whole career. So Josh Jacobs is a very talented player. Up against the Kansas City Chiefs is kind of a pretty solid matchup. We did see last week Damian Harris run a fucking lap all over the Chiefs defense. So I think we may be able to see Josh Jacobs have a big return game here up against the Kansas City Chiefs. For the rest of the team, I'm sitting Jalen Richard as well as Darrell Williams. None of those guys very relevant at all unless the other guys were to go down. That's how we see a lot of these backfields. A lot of these backfields are just dominated by one guy, not necessarily a workhorse role in a lot of these situations, but one guy is more dominant than the other. The one guy is just so much better than the other guy that it just seems like they're irrelevant unless someone was to get hurt. Next game here, we got the Arizona Cardinals at the New York Football Jets. Now, I'm starting Kenyon Drake, but this is the last straw, like that Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, all right? I'm fucking done with the Arizona Cardinals, Kenyon Drake, the running back. If he does bad here, he had a beautiful matchup, a fuego matchup last week up against the Carolina Panthers, and all he did was bend you straight over that table, smack your ass like a drum, and fuck you silently through the night. And it was embarrassing how bad Kenyon Drake was. Now, if he's bad this week up against the New York Football Jets, that could not stop anything. A 7-year-old could run for 1,000 yards up against the Arizona Cardinals. So if Kenyon Drake, or not up against the Cardinals, up against the New York Football Jets. So if Kenyon Drake cannot do it, I'm completely sold out. I'm benching him. I might cut him because of how disrespected I feel from Kenyon Drake. This guy had so much opportunity this year and hasn't shown jack of shit for it. For the rest of the game, I'm sitting down Chase Edmonds unless Drake was to go down. I don't really feel confident starting Chase Edmonds. Now, Drake is banged up, but he is believed to play this week. Now, Le'Veon Bell may make his triumphant return in this game up against the Arizona Cardinals, but with Adam Gase, that dumb, dense motherfucker, being the head coach, I'm not sure I even want to start Le'Veon Bell. Adam Gase is too worried about snorting some booger sugar rather than developing a game plan. So if Le'Veon Bell plays, you're likely going to have to play him, right? Because he's probably better than the other options on your team, but don't expect much even up against the Arizona Cardinals, and Frank Gore is going to be a sit as well. Next game here, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Miles Sanders, this is going to be a very tough matchup for him. I'm still going to start him due to the fact that he is going to be getting dump-off opportunities in this game, in the receiving game, but I don't expect big numbers out of Sanders up against a very, very tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense. James Conner should likely be able to run a train up against that Eagles defense. The Eagles defense just isn't all that good. We saw them defeat the 49ers last week on Sunday, but I think James Conner has a big game here, especially after having that bye week early in the season. Let him rest up, considering he's always just fucking banged up now. He was probably healthy to go last week or the week before when he played quite well, but here up against the Eagles, I think this is going to be a great game out of Conner. I'm sitting down Boston Scott as well as the Steelers' friends in the backfield because there's so many guys in the Steelers' backfield, but none of them are going to be relevant if James Conner is playing. Mike Tomlin doesn't give two fucks if the other guy behind him is even better than James Conner, because when James Conner is healthy, he is the starting back, and Boston Scott is relevant even when Miles Sanders is out. Next game here, we got the LA Rams going up against the Washington Football Team. Now, this Rams backfield is starting to look like the Ravens backfield, where it's just going to be a smorgasbord of shit on a weekly basis. Now, Cam Akers likely returning this week up against the Washington Football Team. This is when he eyes his return, so I would assume he plays this week. This would be a good matchup for him, but now with all three backs likely playing Akers, Henderson, and Malcolm Brown. I'm not even sure Henderson's still on the team because it seemed like he retired last week up against the New York Football Giants because of how useless he was. So I'm going to sit down all Rams backs. I feel like these guys are all just siphoning each other's fucking value by all being healthy. For the Rams, for the Washington Football Team, I'm going to be firing up Antonio Gibson. He has scored 3 tutties, I believe, 3 weeks in a row, so 1 tutty a game. He's been playing quite well, even up against a tougher LA Rams run defense. Antonio Gibson is involved in the pass-catching game, so I expect him to kind of skate by in this matchup. Next one here, we got the Dolphins at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, do the Dolphins make the change to Tua Tagovailoa in this game? I sure fucking hope so. As a Miami Dolphins fan, the man who has Dan the Man Marino on the fucking wall, I hope that the Miami Dolphins make that change. But regardless of the change, the 49ers also, we have no idea who their quarterback is going to be. Could be sexy man Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy GQ. It could be Nick Mullins, or it could be It could be Big Dick Beathard. So I really have no idea. They're going to be confusing. I mean, maybe we see it in Tua's face in this game, or maybe we don't. I don't know. I'm just going to assume it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, though, going up against Jimmy G. I think he returns in this game. I like Myles Gaskin in this matchup. Myles Gaskin did disappoint last week going up against the Seattle Seahawks. He just wasn't as involved as he was weeks prior. This was likely due to the fact that the Dolphins allowed a stupid fucking touchdown with like 20 seconds left to be scored, which screwed them because they were close in the game. They could have really started to run the rock with Myles Gaskin and kind of develop a better and safer game plan, but instead they get gashed by Russell Wilson straight down the field, and they end up scoring, and the Dolphins end up losing the game. But with that said, Myles Gaskin is involved in the pass-catching game. Does look like a running back that I would want to buy into on a weekly basis. Definitely top 15 potential for Gaskin if given the opportunity here, since the 49ers looked fucking abysmal last week up against the Eagles team that looked very bad as well. Jerick McKinnon did not have the hottest game, but I will continue to start him as long as Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman are not healthy. For these sits, I'm sitting down Jordan Howard. This guy is fucking useless. All he does is he's used as that fat motherfucking wrecking ball that runs straight through the offensive line and scores a touchdown once every week, but he's only used in between the in the red zone. He's never used at all when they're outside of there. Jeff Wilson had 2 touchdowns the week prior. Last week just disappoints. I thought he was going to be getting fed the rock heavily in the red zone. The 49ers just were not able to score, so Jeff Wilson was kind of irrelevant. So I'm not too sure I want to buy in on a guy with such little usage last week. Next game here, we got the New York Football Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this game just screams to me snooze fest, right? Either the Cowboys are going to have sexual intercourse with that Giants defense like they did with the Browns defense last week, or this game is going to be so low scoring. This is a game between two of the worst defenses in the NFL. And with that said, I'm not starting a single Giants back. After Saquon Barkley ended up getting hurt, it's just a smorgasbord, a carnival of running backs because it's a fucking clown show behind that offensive line in New York. Even the offensive line is a clown show. The Giants' offensive line sucks absolute wee-wee. The running backs suck absolute wee-wee. And even up against a piss-poor Cowboys defense, I don't expect much out of Devonta Freeman or Dion Lewis. For the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott did not put up the hottest game last week up against the Cleveland Browns, but I expect a bounce-back game here up against a very bad Giants defense. Tony Pollard is definitely a sit on a weekly basis unless Zeke was to get hurt. Next game here, we got the Broncos at the New England Patriots. This game definitely has potential to be an absolute, complete, and utter snooze fest. Melvin Gordon would be a start for me in this game unless Phillip Lindsay is to return and be healthy. In that case, it's kind of another scenario like with Zach Moss and with Devin Singletary, where the two guys just eat at each other, and there's really just no productive fantasy points coming out of the backfield if both are healthy. So with that said, if Lindsay returns, then I'm not playing Melvin Gordon, but if Lindsay's out again for week number 5, even though they're reporting he may play, I would go ahead and if Lindsay plays, to make sure you sit Melvin Gordon. For the Patriots, I think you can start 2 backs in this backfield. James White for sure is your safest option. James White was getting a bunch of dump offs last week, even with Brian Hoyer under center. I guarantee you this week it's probably going to be Jarrett Stidham, unless Cam Newton ends up playing now. Trying to understand how the fucking corona protocols work makes about 0 sense because I have no idea really how it works. I feel like Cam may be able to play this week, or they may be able to not make him play this week. I don't really understand it at all. I thought it was 14 days, but apparently it's not. Apparently you can get it done even faster. So really have no idea how to understand the quarterback situation here until later in the week. Damian Harris got his first start of the season after being on the IR to begin the first 3 weeks of the season. And the guy came out hot, 100-plus rushing yards in that game up against a tough Kansas City Chiefs defense. Up against the Broncos, Damian Harris looks to return to that peak performance and get over 100 yards again. I do like him this week as a safer kind of play, but I don't expect him to get all that many dump offs. I'm going to be sitting down sexy Rexy Burkhead. It seems like when Damian Harris is healthy, Rex Burkhead just won't be given enough opportunity to warrant being a start this week up against the Denver Broncos. Next matchup here, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the Cleveland Browns. Sadly, last week, Nick Chubb ends up getting hurt in that game for the Indianapolis Colts up against the Bears, I think. No, Nick Chubb was not in that game. I'm a dumbass. Nick Chubb plays on the Cleveland Browns. He got hurt up against the Dallas Cowboys, out likely a bunch of weeks. So now Kareem Hunt steps into an even better role than Chubb would have had as the number one guy, because the number two guy is D'Ernest Johnson, not the greatest running back. Now, he's definitely worthy of a pickup if you guys are still doing your waivers, but he's not a guy that I'm looking to start this week up against a very tough Colts defense. The only reason why I kind of like Kareem Hunt this week is because of the immense amount of carries he's going to get, plus the kind of upside of the pass-catching game being there for him, and him being on the field a lot more, kind of pushing towards more receptions. For Jonathan Taylor, a couple bad weeks in a row, not looking too great, but up against the Browns, I do expect kind of a bounce-back game. Not necessarily the top 8 running back, I guess, on the weeks that I feel like he should be getting, but I would not sell out yet on Jonathan Taylor. The guy's immensely talented, running behind the best O-line in the NFL, so I would not be bought off the Jonathan Taylor train. I'm sitting down Nyheim Hines, don't feel like he's ultra-relevant in that offense, and D'Ernest Johnson, like I talked about before, definitely a guy to pick up, but not a guy I'm looking to play this week up against the Colts. Next game here, we got the Minnesota Vikings at the Seattle Seahawks. In this game, if Chris Carson plays, he's 100% a go in my lineup. If he does not play, but I think he will, I would play DJ Dallas in that case. Carlos Hyde just seems to be far too banged up. Chris Carson has been balling out of control the last couple of weeks while he's been playing, so I expect nothing less than greatness up against a Vikings defense that is not very good. Dalvin Cook, on the other hand, just runs a train on every single defense. The Seattle Seahawks don't have the former 12th man defense, or whatever they used to call themselves, the Legion of fucking Boom defense that they had a couple of years ago. They're just not that team anymore, and Dalvin Cook will be able to easily exploit that defense just like he did to the Houston Texans last week. The guy's a workhorse in the NFL unless he's to get hurt, knock on wood, because he always ends up getting hurt, knock on wood. Dalvin Cook should be very good, though, in this game up against the Seahawks. Final game here, the Monday night special between the Chargers and the Dallas Cowboys. Not the Chargers and the Dallas Cowboys, the Chargers at the New Orleans Saints. Apparently, guys, I do not know how to read. The Chargers going up against the Saints should be a pretty solid matchup. Justin Herbert, the pervert, has ended up losing his last couple of games, but I think he's going to be able to eat a W here in New Orleans, potentially. I like the running backs in this game. Alvin Kamara, obviously the number one back now on a weekly basis with Christian McCaffrey out and Saquon Barkley out for the season. Just seems like Alvin Kamara is going to be a locked and loaded option on a weekly basis, even up against a tougher Chargers defense, due to how involved he is in this offense. I actually want Michael Thomas to come back, because then I feel like the whole defense isn't centered around stopping Alvin Kamara. Obviously, sadly, last week we lost Austin Eckler to an injury, likely taking away a bunch of weeks of his season, but in that case, Joshua Kelly is now the head honcho back on that team. We saw Josh Jacobs kind of play very well up against the New Orleans Saints defense a couple of weeks ago, and I think Joshua Kelly is the true number one on that team when Eckler is out. Now, I think Jackson will be involved, but I don't think he'll be involved enough to kind of teeter Josh Kelly off of a cliff and make him worthy of not starting. So I like Joshua Kelly this week going up against the New Orleans Saints. For sits Justin Jackson until I kind of see him be very productive in this offense. I don't want to start him in. Latavius Murray did end up playing well last week, but I just think while Alvin Kamara is healthy, you're kind of just betting on a touchdown with Latavius Murray if you are putting him in your lineup. So thank you guys all for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying again, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Check out one of the videos on your screen, as well as check out overlaydfs.com. Link down below in the description. And I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day, and I'll see you motherfuckers tomorrow with some more bangers of videos. Goodbye!